Universitas Indonesia, the place where knowledge and innovation are committed to humanity. Through its long story since 1849, Universitas Indonesia is considered as the oldest educational institution in Asia. It has been through a substantial change for more than a century. Founded as Javanese medical doctors' school, today Universitas Indonesia became a center of science, technology, culture, and arts. Located in a 320 hectares greenery area, Universitas Indonesia offers a comfortable environment for daily teaching and research activities. To become one best world-class research university, Universitas Indonesia is committed to provide wide and fair access of high-quality teaching and learning. Being part of global educational institution, Universitas Indonesia invites students from all over the world. A value of learning how to convey and to accept knowledge with global society despite different language and cultural background. In the process to be an open knowledge community, Universitas Indonesia is committed to provide learning opportunities to talented students from all over the world through its extensive scholarship program for more than 500 students each year. Excellences of the university's researchers has been proven by research products which benefits development of science, public welfare, technological, industrial achievement, and engineering, as well as government policies in social, economical, political, and cultural sectors. At Universitas Indonesia, each student has the opportunity to share knowledge and making something that will impact society and how they get used to with global competitive environment. To become virtuous and globally competitive graduates and prominent leaders in many respective fields. Academic, extracurricular, and other resources are designed to prepare them for the highest positions of leadership and lives in many fields of service of global human endeavor. Also, how they learn to implementing knowledge as part of community service. A simple solutions for most common social problem in developing country. Many graduates of Universitas Indonesia play a central role in both national and global development, a strong tradition in making contribution to society. Interaction with global influential leaders is part of learning process of all University of Indonesia's academic society. How they perceive a global challenge through the respective leaders. It's our commitment to constantly developing a learning community that always moves forward with open arms to embrace all talented young people. Universitas Indonesia, the next level of excellence.
Hello, everyone. I hope that everyone's doing very well and is having a pleasantly good day. Good morning to all of our friends who are watching from the Netherlands, and good afternoon to those who are watching from Indonesia. Perhaps I can introduce myself first. My name is Nadine, and I am currently enrolled in Universitas Indonesia as an undergraduate student in the Faculty of Psychology. Today, I have the honor of accompanying you all today as an MC. It is a pleasure to meet everyone here. Welcome to today's symposium event, Psychology from the East, Psychology from the West. This event is a form of discussion forum that is expected to be held periodically to address research and conduct interesting dynamic dialogues on psychological issues commonly found in societies such as Indonesia, the Netherlands, and possibly other countries as well. As you all may know, on this first symposium event, we will cover the topic of internet-mediated life and its implications on the interpersonal relationships and romance in young people. We will also be going over case studies originating from both Indonesia and the Netherlands, so you can definitely prepare yourself to see some cross-cultural comparisons within today's topics. Luckily, we have the honor of having three speakers to accompany us today. The first one is Dr. Elizabeth Christie Purwaneri. The second is Dr. Marika De Witte. And the third is Dr. Imelda Ika Dian Oriza. And today's discussions will all be moderated by Chantio Atindrio Daniswaro. Now, I will be happily giving the floor to Associate Professor Dr. Chut Trifa Mutia, the Dean of the Faculty of Psychology here in Universitas Indonesia. Ibu Tia, if you may, the floor is now all yours.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you today. I am Cynthia Berliana. I graduated from Universitas Indonesia last year, and I'm now a clinical and forensic assistant psychologist for Cassandra and Associates. The topic that is going to be discussed by Mrs. Purwaneri, the use of dating apps, romance, and sex work.
Good morning to our friends in the Netherlands and good afternoon to our friends in Indonesia. It is a pleasure for us to greet you today in the first series of the Symposium, Psychology from the East, Psychology from the West. The special feature of the symposium is that there is a conversation between researchers from Indonesia or other eastern parts of the world with researchers from the West. Thus, better mutual understanding can be developed, which hopefully will continue with the growing interest in different ways of collaboration to build knowledge. The theme of today's symposium is Internet-mediated life and its implications on the interpersonal relationships and romance in young people, an important issue for us in any part of the world with the massive presence of the internet that has greatly changed our lives. On behalf of the Faculty of Psychology UE, I would like to extend my gratitude and to say thank you to Dr. Marijke de Witt from Maastricht University, who is kindly willing to be our guest speaker and opens herself up for further collaboration. Regarding collaboration, I would like to convey that the Faculty of Psychology UE has a strong collaboration with the Faculty of Psychology and Neuroscience, Maastricht University. In this particular occasion, please let me share some information regarding the cooperation in doctorate program. In our collaboration format, UE students will be able to gain some exposure to enroll or participate actively in educational and research activities at Maastricht University, such as conducting literature reviews or working in a laboratory under the supervision of a professor from Maastricht University. Students from Maastricht University who are interested in doing research in Indonesia can also take part in some of the research activities at UE. Joint supervision with promoters or co-promoters from both universities are also included within the collaboration. Currently, we are also working to further activate and strengthen some existing cooperation with other international partners, which we will inform you in the next symposium. I'm very pleased with this enthusiasm for this symposium. The symposium will be conducted regularly, and in the second one coming up next, the topic will be about internet and the challenge of higher education. I was informed that most of the participants today are in their master program and some have graduated from master programs in various universities. We welcome you to pursue your doctorate program at our faculty. We have certain various research groups and one of them might be in your interest. Thank you for your participation. I wish you a happy and fruitful discussion in this symposium. Stay healthy and safe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ibu Tia, for the very wonderful opening to today's event. Now, I will be introducing you all to our moderator for the day. Chantio Atrindrio Daniswara, or also known as Danis, is an academic staff at the Faculty of Psychology, Universitas Indonesia. He is also a PhD student at Radboud University Nijmegen in the Netherlands. He was trained as an adult clinical psychologist and conducts clinical practice in several psychological clinics and NGO, handling victims and perpetrators of intimate partner violence and several other clinical problems. His interest mainly lies on the study of gender, intimate partner violence, anger dysregulation, and men's issues. All of those interests brought him to teach clinical psychology, adult psychopathology, psychology of gender, theories of personality, and intervention methods at Universitas Indonesia. Currently, he is working on a PhD project about how and why people stay in violent relationships. The project plan is to examine the maintenance mechanism via a dyadic perspective. He is also part of the relationship lab group at Behavioral Science Institute, Radboud University Nijmegen. Now, without further ado, I will be handing over the reins to Dennis. Dennis, if you may, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Nadine, for your introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Bapak, Ibu, Mas, Mbak in Indonesia, and everyone in other parts of the world. I'm Chantio Tindrio Danisworo, or Danis. I'm going to be your moderator for today's session. First of all, I would like to welcome you to the first symposium of Psychology from the East, Psychology from the West. Psychology from the East, Psychology from the West Symposium is a discussion forum held by Faculty of Psychology, Universitas Indonesia that aims to bring new perspectives and concerns about psychological issues in the international world. In this first symposium, our topic is Internet-mediated life and its implication on the interpersonal relationship and romance in young people, case study in Indonesia and Netherlands. We have three honorable speakers, which are, as the title says, from Indonesia and Netherlands, Dr. Elizabeth Christie Purwaneri, Dr. Marike de Witte, and Dr. Imelda Ikadian Oriza. I personally think all of the topics are very interesting. Only by reading the title, there are a lot of questions that I already have about how internet changed our pattern of romantic and sexual behavior, how COVID-19 changed the romantic and sexual relationship, does it only affect young people, and a lot more. Obviously, we can discuss this after all of the speakers present their research. Each speaker has 20 to 30 minutes to present, followed by other speakers. After all the speakers are done, we will have Q&A and discussion session for about 30 minutes. You can type the questions directly on the chat box on the Zoom while listening to the presentation so that you don't forget the question. And I will read the questions to the speakers later in the Q&A session. So the first speaker is Dr. Elizabeth Christie Purwaneri, or we usually call her Mbak Iput. Mbak Iput is a lecturer in the Faculty of Psychology and the School of Strategic and Global Studies, Universitas Indonesia. Currently, she is the head of doctoral study program. Mbak Iput has graduated from the Faculty of Psychology as a psychologist, taking gender studies, and then finishing her doctoral degree in philosophy. Her research interests are in gender issues and sexuality, prevention and intervention of violence, and mental health issues in general. She joins the Toward Healthy Mind, Body, and Sexuality Laboratorium of the Faculty of Psychology. In 2002, with some friends, she set up the Yayasan Pulih, or Pulih Foundation, focusing on trauma handling, prevention, and intervention of violence. Also a psychosocial empowerment to the community. Currently, she is the co-president of Asian Association of Women's Studies. Today, Mbak Iput will present her research titled The Use of Dating Apps, Romance, and Sexual Behaviors of Young Adults in Large State Series in Indonesia. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Elizabeth Christie Purwaneri. Mbak Iput, waktu dan tempat dipersilahkan.
Thank you, Mas Danis. A good afternoon to all friends in Indonesia and good morning to Marike and Danis in the Netherlands. I am so happy to meet you all, even when it is only via Zoom. I would like to share parts of the results of our research umbrella on the topic of online sexual activity of young adults in large cities in Indonesia. This is an S1 research involving 6 students. What I would like to share is about the use of dating apps and sexual behaviors of young adults. Before I go on, I guess Cynthia is here with us. She is the one who chose and studied this topic. She was already graduated last year. I am really thankful to be able to work with her on the issue. So Cynthia, if you are here, please, can you show yourself? Just say hi to all of us.
Okay. Hi.
Okay, yeah, hi.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. Okay, I would like to share a screen. I hope this already shown. Okay. Maybe in the last 5 years or more, conversation with my students and other young people told me that young people, they frequently use dating applications. Some of my students admitted to use the app. They hope to find romantic partners and even life partners from dating app. They didn't really think about sex because they valued, because their values haven't led them to it. Meanwhile, there were some research also conducted, only few conducted in Indonesia, telling us its results that dating app usually used to find sexual partners without commitment. Then I asked myself about young people in Indonesia who use dating app, how many, how they use it, whether they are happy with it or whether they face challenges. Do they mainly use it to find dates or potential life partners, or whether it is more to satisfy their sexual needs? This is so since in Indonesian context, sexual relations before or outside marriage are considered by many not as a good, so we need to avoid it, it. But and meanwhile, while authority figures like parents, teachers, religious leaders, or maybe decision makers in the government think very normatively that sex is not allowed or maybe sinful in before marriage, the actual behavior may be different. Data explains that significant number of young people are already sexually active. Moreover, the presence of dating apps has radically changed the pattern of how young people seek out or establish intimacy or behave sexually. Not only has sexual intercourse become much easier to practice, sexual intercourse without commitment has also become a new phenomenon. So again, our question is how really young people behave, how they pursue intimacy. So we would like to get broader pictures of the underlying issues, and also actually we would like to understand more about what can we do to help young people prepare for radical changes, particularly with the presence of the internet. So we conducted a survey to obtain a fairly broad picture and focused interview to get a deeper understanding of sexual behaviors and the challenges they faced. So I won't go into very detail, just in brief, data shows that there are approximately 64% of the Indonesian population are connected to the internet, while the total population are so many, right? And then meanwhile, internet users are mostly those in the age of 19 to 34 and then 35 to 54. When we focus on those who use dating apps, they have motivations such as to find friends, to fill spare time, to expand networks, to have fun, to find potential romantic partner, to look for business partner, just to observe people also. But another survey done found that actually the majority of those using dating app really try to find sexual partners. It is around 41%, so it's quite high. So now I would like to explain the participants of our own research. The participants of the survey were internet users who lived or reside in big cities in Indonesia like Jakarta, Bandung, Surabaya, Medan. In total, we have 50 participants. 70% are women. They are mostly aged 18 to 27, and mostly are students and employees. Of all the respondents, 38% have used or are currently using dating apps. Their motivations, they might choose more than one answer. Their motivations are to make friends, to find romantic partners, to look for sexual partners, casual sex, yeah, and to look for prospective life partner. If we see this, actually, those who really like to find a life partner is less than other. So there are relatively few people of that. Of those using dating app, all of them using dating app, 44% had sex with people they meet from dating apps, and they explain their activities as an effort to make friends, to amuse oneself, to expand networks, and to satisfy their sexual desires. Very few continue using dating app in the period when they are having romantic or serious partners. In this period, usually they would uninstall the application. But when the relationship ends or not working well, or they feel lonely, the participants reinstall the dating app. Now we are going to share in brief our result from the interview. The participants are students in some cities, and they use dating app. And actually, we tried to divide those that we did not know whether she or he had ever had sex with a partner from dating app, and those that was known by us to have sex with partners. But actually, from the total of six participants, all of them had sex already with partners from dating apps. From the interview, we found out that sex without emotional commitment is preferred. So if you are looking for companions in dating apps, it's friends with benefits, not serious dating. I've got friend with benefit from this dating app, and even I got a one-night stand. And we also found out that actually many of them engage in risky sexual behavior. The participants often change sexual partners, and maybe one of this quotation can explain. Actually, I don't want to have too deep a bond with a sexual partner from a dating app. So that's why I changed sexual partners. The problem is that I have a girlfriend, right? I do not want my Tinder relationship to disturb my dating relationship either, because I still love my girlfriend. From the survey, we found out that actually 87% of the respondent or the participant, they did not use protection while having sex. And none of the participants of the interview used that also. So this is from the interview, not from the survey, this data. It seems that the participants of the interview, at least, they tend to like extreme sex. 2 male participants admitted had and would force sexual intercourse through various means without using condoms. And 1 female participant admitted to like sexual relations that treated her harshly and disliked the use of condom. So we have some other important gender issues actually to take note. In regard to anticipation of consequences, the participants share, for example, like this. Oh yeah, I'm afraid he will spread it to other people, or even I am afraid that he, without me knowing, makes our sex tape, and then I'm very afraid about that. And what the other one, this is from a male participant. Yeah, people will think that you are so into sex. Yes, even if it's true, sometimes it's just not good to hear it. Another consequence is, yeah, as happened to me before, like I got syphilis or got a girl pregnant. If someone is pregnant, I'll just leave her. I will unmatch her. But if I got syphilis, may God forbid. Okay, so they really tend to engage in risky sexual behavior, but they also tend to take the consequences very casually. They were reluctant to think about them seriously. I already mentioned the possibility of sexual assault. Actually, it was quite shocking that 2 of the 4 male participants had and tended to commit rape and other sexual crimes on female partners. So at first, I matched with this girl. Then I met her at night so that I could get her drunk. And it worked. And it didn't take long for me to book a cheap hotel. Ha, ha, ha. I executed it at the hotel because in a drunken state, the girl was helpless. The next day, I left her at the hotel. Then I unmatched her on Tinder. So implicitly, there are also issues of needs for approval.
We are sorry, everyone. If you can just stay put for a little while, we are currently experiencing a technical difficulty.
So while we're waiting for Mbak to come back, perhaps if you have any questions so far, you can type in on the chat box. Then I can read it to Mbak later in the Q&A session.
Excuse me for this technical error. I would like to continue. Is it already udah kedengeran ya, Nis?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry. It is always like this. Okay, this is I explain about the interview, and then I explain about the gendered issues, about this needs for approval, intimacy, and self-worth. That the woman usually they are more difficult to distancing themselves from the emotion or affection. A stigma is one other issue in which women using dating app are perceived as less valued. Therefore, women might not easily confess to others about this compared to men. Thus, the use of dating apps is more problematic for women, including in terms of its further implications. What I share were more descriptive. We need to focus on other issues. Actually, we have maybe one methodological issue to take note. There are some studies revealed that in sexuality studies, those who are willing to become participants are those who are already open and active, so maybe they don't really represent the general population. This might also explain about the extreme data maybe found from the interview. We also have significantly higher number of women participants. We don't know why, but at UI we observe that usually when we do online research, many more women participate than men. The finding of the research lead us to further questions. Romance in terms of what? In terms of connection and intimacy, or in terms of dreams about a future lifetime partner, or romance as sex? With the cultural background and values in Indonesia, different understandings and expectations can lead to different psychological issues, and it can even implicate different mental health problems. Also, we can develop the supposition that there is a change in the concept of romance, commitment, loyalty, and other related concepts in the minds of young people. We can pose questions on deeper issues of connection, loneliness, very early trauma of sexual initiation, maybe, as well as conflicting issues. Those who like to find lifetime partner versus those who just like to have fun by engaging in casual sex. Relate to this, how to prevent psychological issues resulting from different needs and perspectives of dating app users. One important thing is that different contexts or cultures in regard to sex might have different implications for challenges and mental health issues. Since we also found the risk of violence, how to prevent sexual crime while at the same time not to create new problems. For example, with a mechanism that allows reporting of incidents of harassment in the system of the dating app itself. But who knows, it can also be used for other purposes that are detrimental to the person being reported. Eventually, dating app has changed human behavior, including sexual behavior, or how to pursue romance and intimacy, maybe quite radically, in my opinion, with its psychological, social, ethical implications. We really need further research with its deeper conceptual and theoretical questions and analysis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mbak Put. Such an insightful presentation. Well, I think this study is still very scarce topic in Indonesia because we don't actually know how the pattern of dating apps user in Indonesia. So I think this is a very important study, especially as you said that dating apps also allows people to find sexual relationship, not only for a long-term relationship. And well, the case in Indonesia is the society still see that sex before marriage is forbidden. And with your finding that it's also shocking and insightful that lots of people actually do that, young people, and also the risk of sexual violence that can be happen in this kind of relationship is also in a very high number. So yeah, maybe you can discuss this. And I also see that there's a lot of questions to you, Maiput, and we can discuss this in the Q&A session.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you,
Thank you.
Maiput.
Thank you.
Hey.
I would like to.
Yeah. Okay. That's the first presentation of our first speaker, Dr. Elizabeth Christie Purwaneri, and our second speaker, Dr. Marika Dewita. Good morning, Marika.
Good morning. Yeah, good
Pleasure
afternoon for you, but good morning in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Marika Dewita is a clinical psychologist and sexologist who currently works as an assistant professor in the Department of Clinical Psychological Science, Faculty of Psychology and Neuroscience at the University of Maastricht in the Netherlands. She has completed her PhD at Ghent University, Belgium, and has previously worked as a sex therapist at Ghent University Hospital and now at Maastricht University Hospital. She holds a variety of courses and workshops on sexual development and has published research articles on the psychosocial factors in regards to sexual functioning, interpersonal dynamics, relationship satisfaction, and other research studies involving dyadic interaction between partners. She has also recently started a very riveting podcast series featuring students as guests, where they discuss the relevant issues of sex, love, and intimacy during the era of pandemic. Today, Marika will present her research titled Romantic and Sexual Relationship During COVID-19 Pandemic. So please welcome our second speaker, Marika Dewita. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. First of all, I'm really enthusiastic being part of this symposium, and I hope I can inform you about sex and relationships in times of COVID, and also hope to learn from you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So we know this was a challenging time. Now, first of all, I think it's important that COVID had an impact on our relationship and it had an impact on sexuality. But it's important to understand that COVID in itself is not a sexually transmittable disease. So it's not that we spread COVID via genital contact or via sexual contact, but of course, we spread the virus via saliva. And sexually intimate behavior like touching and kissing is obviously often part of sexual contact. So that's why we see that in itself, sex is not the problem, but it's the intimacy related to sex. But the problem, of course, is that can we have sex without these intimate behaviors? Now, it's especially the social mitigation rules that have an impact on the sexual relationship, because we have to be at 1.5 meter distance. We cannot have physical contact. We also have limited social contact, and we can only have sex with our cohabiting partner. So that has important implications for relationship development and for having sex in the context of new relationships or for meeting people, dating with people. So there seems to be some kind of tension between, on the one hand, collective health and individual health, because we know that these restrictions have a strong impact on people's mental well-being, because sex and relationships are an important determinant of quality of life. And so we have to be safe. We have to make sure that our physical health is okay. But at the same time, there are a lot of individuals who are suffering because of these COVID rules. So there's also seemed this tension between general health and sexual health. And we see that a lot of prevention measures have focused on the general health. And there's a lot also about mental health. But it seems that the government and the policymakers are not really considering the importance of sexual health. Because if we think about the rules, the rules tend to discriminate. In the Netherlands, and I assume this was also the case in Indonesia, the rule is that you can only have sex with the partner with who you live with, so the cohabiting partner. So what about singles? What about partners who were just started to date? What about long distance relationships or people with living apart together, a lat relationship? What about open relationships or polyamorous relationships? I'm not sure whether the open relationships are very prevalent in Indonesia, but in our country, we see that what we call consensual non-monogamy is really becoming more and more popular, and that people are really engaging in, we have a relationship, but at the same time, we can have sex with other partners. But of course, if we think about these rules, we do not consider all these different types of relationships and only focus on the partner with who we live with. So it's a kind of conservative view on sexual relationships. Now, the rules are quite strict in the sense, if you're single or you're not living together with your partner, well, you could have virtual sex, you can masturbate. We have the teledildonics, what we call. These are sexual devices, sexual tools that you can use on a distance, so that you can stimulate each other even when you're not in the same room. And that's like the general advice. But the problem is there are also risks involved, because what about this sexting, virtual sex? There's risk in the sense, if you don't trust the person, if you don't know this person enough, they can spread images. So it's also kind of risky to do that with partners which you are dating with and you don't know that well. What about intimacy and sexual pleasure? You can say, well, you can masturbate or you can have sex via the camera, via the webcam, but that's not the same, because solo sex serves different functions than partner sex. So I think that a lot of these rules have been installed because people thought, the policy thought, well, this pandemic is going to be for 1 or 2 months. And we can clearly see that people in the beginning of the pandemic were strict and followed the rules, but now it takes more than 1 year, and you cannot expect that people have no sex for less than 1 year, especially also in Western countries, having sex without having a relationship, single relationships, friends with benefits are really common. So the policy needs to recognize the importance of sexuality. I think that sex has benefits for the physical system. We know that having sex, also the touching, it increases oxytocin, it reduces cortisol, so it's good for stress buffering. It's good for the psychological health, but it's also increasing our immune system. So it's actually a good thing. If you have sex, you have a better immune system, which could also help to fight this COVID pandemic. So I think it's really important that a lot of policymakers didn't really think about sexual health and sexual relationships. And I think it's important that we are pragmatic, that we try to minimize the risks during sexual encounters, but we cannot really ban them during this COVID period. So when we look at the numbers, what we see is the studies have shown that most of the time, it was especially the singles, the dating partners, and people in a long distance relationship or lat relationship had less sexual activity and less sexual satisfaction. We also saw that among singles, there was less dating. They didn't really use sexting or dating apps, but we have to be careful whether this is a reporting bias, because especially we know that there were a lot of people who were following the rule and kind of stigmatizing the people who were not following the rules. So a lot of singles, in the first month, they stopped dating. But then after 1 month, they felt like, oh, I feel lonely, and they kept on dating, but they did it secretly because they knew they were actually crossing the rules. So that's why we see that a lot of singles did date, but they don't dare to report. So we are not sure whether we can really believe or take the data on singles for granted. If we look at people in a relationship, there's a lot of variability. There were people, about half of the people who report that they had less sexual activity, but there were also people who reported there were no changes or who had more sexual activity and engaged in more novel, more adventurous sexuality. So they actually benefited from this COVID situation. There seems to be a lot of differences among couples on how they dealt with the COVID situation. It depends on whether you're stressed or not. There were a lot of people who were stressed because they were afraid of the virus, they were worrying about their health, but they were also losing their jobs or didn't have some financial problems because of the COVID, so they were stressed. But there were also people who had less stress. They didn't suffer from financial problems. They could actually pause the rat race and could actually work on their life-work balance. They could have more time at home, which actually meant less stress for them, more time. So it really depends on whether you're stressed or not. And also when you're stressed, people deal very differently with it. Some people will engage in more sex as a way to cope with the stress, and some people will experience less sexual desire when they're stressed. So it's really difficult to make these uniform, solid conclusions. It also depends on how people deal with time and space and about the quality of the relationship. Because if you had a good relationship and a strong emotional connection, then you're more flexible to adapt to these changing life circumstances than when you have a low quality relationship. So it's really difficult, like I said, to have these averages or numbers, because in research, we do research and we focus on the averages. What is the average impact of stress on the relationship? The average impact of COVID on the relationship? But the problem is that there are so many individual differences on how people cope with stress. So it's really difficult to make these uniform conclusions. Some completely lose their interest in sex. Some have more sex, some have less sex, but more adventurous sex. So we really have to be careful that we do not create new norms and performance demands, because people are insecure, they're looking for answers, and they look at the media, and the media likes to have these unnuanced statements about the impact of stress and the relationship, but it's actually really difficult to make these clear announcements. So what about the social mitigation measures, the lockdown? Well, it can create new problems. It can increase existing problems because some couples have to deal with a crisis on top of a crisis, and it can uncover problems. So maybe you were doing okay, but as long as there was distraction and you could do different things, but at a certain point when you're constantly together, you realize, oh my God, I'm actually very lonely in my relationship. I feel that our relationship is so empty, for example. So it can uncover problems that you didn't know were there. So what are the challenges? A lot of people were bound to home, so there was less time and privacy to engage in intimate behavior and sexuality. For example, schools were closed, so the children were constantly at home. Some people had some difficulties to balance the role. They need to work at home via the computer. They also have to manage their household, so that has some implications for dividing their time. So people felt that before they were like workers who went to their work, and then they could really make a separation between privacy and work. But at a certain point, it all gets blurred, and you have to combine these different roles. Some people gained weight, didn't engage in self-care, less makeup, always wearing joggings and trainings, were not really taking care of themselves because they felt like, I'm always at home, I don't see people. You get less compliments because if you're in a long-term relationship, in the beginning, you give a lot of compliments to each other, but at a certain time, it becomes like an evidence. People don't really give these compliments anymore. And then it's really important, if you go to work, if you meet with friends, they give you compliments. Hey, you look nice today. Your hair is nice. You have a nice coat. You have a nice blouse. You have a nice dress. So these compliments, you don't get them anymore because you're constantly sitting at home. So this can also have an effect on how you feel about yourself, about whether you still feel sexually attractive. There's less mystery because you're always at home. Maybe before your partner was working at the university, always dressed nicely, and suddenly he or she is sitting there constantly watching the screen. So there's less mystery, and there's kind of a disruption of this balance between separateness and togetherness. And I'm going to address this in a minute. There's more conflict, more loneliness, more stress. So this means that there's less opportunities and motivation to open yourself for sexual desire. And this is a really important concept. I want to elaborate a little bit more on this, because if we think about the sexual system, we often think that sexual desire pops up spontaneously. That I'm sitting here and suddenly I feel the desire. This is not what happens. It starts with a stimulus. There needs to be something that triggers your sexual system. It can be a fantasy. It can be looking at your wife and feeling, hey, she's really wonderful. It can be just a touch or a kiss or a sound or a smell, something that triggers your system. It automatically grabs your attention. When you give a sexual meaning to it, it will automatically activate your physical system. So you get sexually aroused. Women get sexually aroused, men get sexually aroused. The moment you become aware of this sexual arousal, you will further process the stimulus, and then you actually have the feeling of sexual arousal and the motivation to do something with it. So what is crucial, sexual desire is not the beginning, it's actually the result of sexual arousal. So the moment there is a sexual stimulus, imagine, for example, your partner starts to touch you. At that point, probably you're not thinking about sex because you're working, or you're thinking about the grocery shopping, you need to cook tonight. So you're not thinking about sex. At that point, you don't have desire. But then it's a matter of, well, I don't have desire now, but I can open myself for sexual desire. I just see what happens. I just engage in sexual activity. I respond to the initiation. I respond to the kissing. And gradually you will see that your body reacts and the desire will grow. So that is really important. It's really important to understand that the question is not, do I feel sexual desire at the moment? The question is, am I motivated to open myself for sexual desire? So it means that you need to create opportunities to have sexual desire. So this means, like, do a date night. If you're constantly sitting together, well, we have a nice dinner tonight. You create an opportunity, you make time for each other. And because of you make time and you're nice to each other, you can open yourself for sexual stimulation. So what determines sexual satisfaction in times of distress? It's about how important sexuality is. And the focus is not only on how much sex do we have, but it's about pleasure. It's about how good the sex is. If you have one-time sex in a month, but it's really nice and you enjoy it, that's okay. You don't have to have sex every week. It's not about the frequency. It's about the flexibility to change, and it's about acceptance and expectations. Now, what do we know? If we think about sex in relationships, we know that sexual desire decreases over time. And this is because when you become more familiar with your partner, the sexual arousal will decrease. We have this natural desire for novel partners. It's part of our evolutionary system. Our evolutionary system is directed towards having sex with as much as possible partners because we want to spread our genes. So we want to have this novelty, but at the same time, it's also obviously very good to have a relationship. So from a natural tendency, we have this biological tendency to have sex with multiple partners, but at the same time, obviously, from a more societal view, it's good to be monogamous and to have one relationship. So often in relationships, we see that we start with this more passionate love, this intense longing for a partner. We're constantly thinking about the partner. It's very obsessive, but obviously that's not adaptive in long-term relationships because you have responsibilities. So it's often starting with this passionate love. You constantly want to have sex. You constantly want to be with your partner, but then it evolves in a more companionate love in which it's more about intimacy and security and commitment and stability. Now, the problem a little bit is that in this passionate love situation, there's a strong desire for sex, but in the companionate love, in long-term relationship, it actually decreases the sexual desire. So there's kind of this paradox, because on the one hand, we want novelty, which increases the sexual desire, but at the same time, we also want to have closeness and security, which decreases the sexual desire. And this is actually the paradox and the dilemma of having sex in the long-term relationships. So how can we solve this? It's a matter of finding a balance between autonomy, being yourself, me time, and connectedness. So autonomy means you want to have some kind of novelty. You have to have this balance between, okay, it's not only about you and me, it's about we. It's not only about we and us, it's about you and me. I mean, it's not only about doing things together and always thinking about relationship. It's also about having time for yourself. And I think that is the biggest challenge in this COVID period, is that there's less me time. You're always together, constantly sitting together. The relationship is more about the stability and the security, and there is no novelty. There are no new sexual stimuli to trigger the sexual desire. So how can you create this differentiation? more me time, and more novel activities. It's about like engaging in something new, doing a new hobby so that you can see your partner through a new gaze, is that your partner becomes less familiar, that there's more mystery. So it's not that we need to have an affair or that we have to engage in sex with other partners to increase a sexual desire. You can also increase sexual desire within a long-term relationship. So let's turn back to the COVID situation. We saw that COVID could have a negative impact on the sexual relationship, but it can clearly also have a positive impact. It can break the routine, more variation in the sexual script, because you're at home, you have more time for each other, so there's a better work-life balance. So you have opportunities to invest more time in the partner and to actually invest in trying out new things in the sexual relationship. More self-care. Some people actually ate more healthy, did more sports because they had more time, and they actually felt more sexually attractive. You have time to discover new interests, and this is important. Like, okay, I'm constantly at home. Well, let's read a new book, or maybe I can take cooking lessons online, and I spend more time in preparing the dinner. And then you can actually see your partner through a new gaze. Like, hey, he suddenly becomes a very good cook, or we talk about a new book he has read, and so on. It's making the effort. It's about doing a dinner date. Even when you're at home all the time, try to make these opportunities to have sex and to create some intimacy between partners. And it's also important to be tolerant and kind to yourself and your partner. Don't look away or ignore the problems, but also don't make hasty decisions. These are exceptional circumstances. And in some relationships, we saw that there was a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. I think it's really important that you wait for making a decision whether you want to stay with this partner or not until the pandemic is over. And then you can see, okay, how are we now in our relationship? Now, obviously, this is like general, okay, what is the impact on the relationship? But there's a lot of diversity in the different types of relationships. What about long distance relationships? They feel like it seems that our relationship is not valid, that we don't have the right to exist. What about partners who don't live together? It was really difficult for them to have a sexual relationship. What about partners who are just starting their relationship? It's really difficult. How do you do this dating when you cannot touch each other, when you cannot have sex? Some partners moved in very quickly because they thought, well, if we don't live together, we cannot have a relationship. So they moved in too quickly, which can have a positive effect, but a negative effect. LGBTQI, so people with a diversity in terms of sexual orientation and gender identity. What about PrEP and safe sex? Because there were less opportunities to test. Coming out is more complicated, and some people had to live at home, like students who were like having a different sexual orientation, had to move back to home, and they had to repress their sexual orientation because their family would not approve it. This can also have an effect on the sexual development. Also, the gender inequality. We know that the impact of COVID is stronger in women because more women are caretakers, they do more domestic labor, they also are more the healthcare workers, so they are more at risk for catching COVID. And there was also more partner violence during this period of COVID. And obviously, often we see that women are the victim of partner violence. So I think that the COVID situation has actually increased this gender inequality. There was also a risk of more sexual dysfunctions in times of COVID because there was more stress, more anxiety and depression, relationship conflict, poor access to healthcare, which may cause and also exacerbate sexual problems. What are most common sexual problems? Often problems with sexual desire. But I think it's really important if we think about sexual desire, is that we don't call it a low sexual desire problem, but a sexual desire discrepancy. Often what happens is that when some partner has low sexual desire, we regard this partner as the low desire partner, this is the patient, and the other one has high desire, this is the norm. And in therapy, we have to make sure that the low desire partner goes to the level of the high desire partner. But this is not right, because it's actually not a problem of the patient, it's a problem of the couple. It's a mismatch in desire, so you have to compromise. The low desire partner has to expand the sexual desire, and the high desire partner have to meet the low desire partner in the middle. So they have to do something with their higher desire. So we need to reframe it as a couple problem and realize that it's very normal to have these discrepancies in long-term relationships, because we know that sexual desire decreases over time. And we know that a lot of people actually, that you don't always have desire for sex at the same moment and have desire for the same. So it's quite normal in relationships that sometimes, some periods, the one partner has more sexual desire than the other partner. It does not necessarily need to be a problem, but when there is a problem, it's also important that you deal with it. It's also about normalizing it, and it's about developing realistic expectations. The good enough sex. Sex cannot always be passionate. Sometimes people expect that sex always needs to be great because this is what we see on television, but this is not reality. Sometimes sex is just okay, and that's good enough. How can you deal with it? You can sort of communicate and try to broaden your sexual repertoire. Try to see, first of all, if you have low sexual desire, you have to understand, is the way we are having sex now sufficient, satisfying enough? Because sex, maybe you're only having penetration, and maybe, especially for women, penetration is not the most interesting part. It's not the most stimulating part. So to realize sex is more than penetration, the focus would be on sexual pleasure. So you have to discover first for yourself, what do I like? What is a sexual stimulus for me? And then you have to communicate this to your partner. Like, okay, this is what I want. The way we have sex now is not really satisfying for me. I want to try out new things. You can make a wish list and just really write down your wishes so that you can share this with your partner. And you can do homework assignments. It's really about sensory focus exercises. I'm not going to explain this in detail, but it's really about touching each other. And it's about learning that sex is more than the penetration. And it's learning to discover each other's body so that you can invest more time in sexual activity. Also important is that we think, if there is a discrepancy in sexual desire, to think about what is the underlying relationship dynamic. Sometimes it can have to do with power, gender inequality, or the fact that there is a disbalance between me and we, and that there's too much togetherness and too little differentiation. So problems with desire, there can also be problems with erectile dysfunction because there's performance demands, because people were sitting at home, they don't feel like part of society anymore. So this decreases their manlyhood, which increases the chance of erectile dysfunction. Orgasmic problems, because people are worrying so much about COVID, they have difficulties to relax and let go. So many sexual problems. And then genital pain, which often have a problem with the treatment, because sometimes in a lot of countries, treatment needs to be paused because of COVID. So this actually worsens the genital pain problem if you do not treat it. We also saw that a lot of people were using porn more. Porn is often a way to cope with the stress and loneliness. And we know that porn is easily available. It's easily accessible. So a lot of people were watching porn daily just to cope with the loneliness, which can create problems of hypersexuality and more relationship conflict because one of the partners is watching porn. It could also be that people who have experienced sexual trauma in the past, that because of this loss of control, this COVID situation, it means that it's so overwhelming, they don't have any control anymore. And this actually remembers them of this trauma in which they also lost control. So there's a reactivation of the PTSD symptoms. But for some, when it comes to sexual dysfunctions, we saw that for some people, there was a better compliance to therapy, that they had more time to work on their sexual relationship, to do the homework assignment. So it's not only bad. COVID could also be when there were already existing sexual dysfunctions, that now people had time to actually deal with the dysfunctions and to work on the problems, which actually made the sexual relationship better. So what will happen after COVID, and this is my last slide, I think we are a little bit worried about the sexual development of young people, because normally what we see is that young people meet each other in a bar, on a cafe, at a university, but now everyone was sitting at home. So there were less opportunities to date. You could do the online dating, but that's not the same as real life dating. We also know that this dating has a function, that people follow what we call a sexual interaction career. So you explore explore your partner, you give a kiss, then it's you touch each other, then you start to touch the genitals, then and so it's in different steps before you engage in penetration. But now, during this COVID situation, all the sexual development is paused. There was no dating, no exploration of each other. So what will happen if we can all date again? Will we just postpone this sexual development and immediately engage in sexual penetration? It's more like this idea, well, now it can, now it's allowed, so we need to do it. So it could be that people will cross their boundaries and that they will actually engage in sexual activity even when they're not ready yet. But it could also be that people will postpone it and become a little bit more sexually anxious because they're afraid, because of the COVID, sexual touch and contact has become so difficult that it could also be that there is more anxiety. Will there be a wave of divorces, relationship breakups, or is there a baby boom because people were sitting at home, so there were more babies? We don't know yet what is actually going to happen. What about the sexual freedom? And suddenly you can go outside again, you see people again. Just means that there is more sexual tension and also more temptation. It could be that you turn this inward and that you fall in love with your partner again because he or she is dressing up again, you're going out with friends, you just fall in love with your partner again because you see your partner through a different gaze. Or you can have this sexual freedom, can turn outward, and there's more risk of infidelity and relationship breakup. And what I also think during this COVID period, there was a lot of help and treatment that we needed to do online. So the telemedicine, the e-health and the online help, I think that we learned a lot that it works and that for a lot of problems with mental health and sexual problems, we can actually rely on the internet and help people. And this can also be positive for people who are otherwise have difficulties to actually go to a sexologist and a psychotherapist. So this telemedicine, I think that this will be something that will stay and that we will need to see how we can integrate this in our current treatments. So if you want to know more about sex, love, and in times of Corona, we have recorded a podcast at Maastricht University. It's available on Spotify, and there you can listen. There we talk about different themes. There's also one interesting episode on cultural diversity, in which we talk about different cultural issues regarded to sexuality. So if you're interested, you can listen to this podcast via Spotify and YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you, Marika, for your insightful presentation. I think there's a lot of points that I can summarize, but well, the first thing is you mentioned about the need to take care of not only physical health, but also sexual and relationship health. But I think that's not even the concern of Indonesian government, since sex is still seen as a taboo thing in Indonesia.
Yeah.
And yeah, to talk openly about sex is also still seen as a taboo. So yeah, I think this is great to have an open discussion like this.
Yeah, but that's why I'm really interested to see afterwards if we can discuss, because this is obviously what we as Western sexologists are concerned with. And I'm really curious to hear how the situation is in Indonesia and how we can help each other. Yeah. Yeah, that will be interesting. So I would like to remind all of the participants also, if you have any questions, please write on the chat box and we'll discuss it later. And also, Marika also said about the importance of autonomy and connectedness. That's always the problem in this work from home situation. Apparently, it can help the sexual relationship, how to build also the sexual desire. And also, what I found interesting is it definitely different on how people in Netherlands maintain the relationship on early phase of the relationship. Like you said that people try to move in together in the early phase, which it's definitely not the case in Indonesia. It's very uncommon to move in together. And yeah, I also don't know how people adapt to it. If they found a date in a early stage and how they do it. And yeah, we can discuss it later. And also it raised a question about how sexual development and sexual freedom after COVID
It is also interesting. So yeah, thank you, Marika, for your presentation. And so let's move on to our third speaker, Dr. Imelda Ikadian Oriza. Hello, Mbak Dian.
Hi, Danis.
Yeah.
Hello,
So,
Mbak Iput. Hello, Marika. Hello, all.
Welcome. So first, I will like to introduce Mbak Dian. Mbak Dian graduated from Faculty of Psychology, Universitas Indonesia as a clinical psychologist. She has completed her doctoral degree and had a very satisfying 16-year career as a psychologist and lecturer. Mbak Dian teaches psychology of human sexuality, gender psychology, abnormal psychology, personality psychology, and other subjects. Mbak Dian is registered with the Clinical Psychology Association, or IPK, Association of Clinical Psychology, and is a member of the Indonesian Psychology Association, HIMSI. Mbak Dian has experience with various clients in areas of depression, anxiety, sadness, and various behavioral problems. Her approach in practice using acceptance commitment therapy, or ACT, Mbak Dian teaches ACT for professional study program students in UI, and also provides ACT training for students and professionals. She strives to create a strong therapeutic relationship with clients to help them achieve rich and meaningful lives. Now, she is also head of Mindfulness and Psychotherapy Research Group at Faculty of Psychology, UI. Today, Mbak Dian will present her research titled The Internet, Relational Problems in Young People and Mindfulness Therapy. So last but not least, our third speaker, Dr. Imelda Ikadian Oriza, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mas Danis, for the introduction. May I share my PowerPoint, yeah? Wait a sec, where is it? Okay. I think my computer is a bit slow. Wait a sec.
It's working, I think, Mbak Dian. You need to.
Can you see the?
Yeah, but not in a full screen now.
Yeah, wait a sec. I don't know why. Let me close some other. It still cannot be moved.
It's always the problem with the
connection and now the
software. Yeah.
How to ini kenapa ya kok lemot banget? Iya nggak bisa tuh.
Coba di close diulang lagi.
Di close. Wait. Tuh nggak bisa. Tuh. Nggak gerak dia. Oh my goodness. Wait a sec. Aku pindah.
Ditutup lagi dulu kan. Iya, coba ditutup lagi, ditutup dulu.
Dennis, I'm sorry. I need to my PPT won't load it well, so
sure.
I think you need to buy time for me.
Yeah.
Maybe you can sing or something.
Yeah, so while waiting for Mbak Dian with the technical problem, so I think we can address the questions from the participants to Marika and also Mbak Iput. Mbak Iput, are you there? Yeah. So there's a question to Mbak Iput regarding the studies. Do you use any specific app for this study, Mbak Iput? Because there's one question about that. Is it, for example, people using Tinder or Bumble or anything? And is there any age group that specifically do the risky sexual behavior?
Sorry, what is the question? Specific groups of the participants?
Yeah, age group, Mbak Iput.
The age group. Actually, we open it. Is it already? Can I answer or what?
Yeah, sure. While waiting for Mbak Dian.
Actually, we make it open to those 18 years old and dan selanjutnya ya. But actually, those who the majority they are 18 to 32. The majority of them.
Okay.
Majority
so
of them.
Quite wide age group. Is there any specific age that is, risky sexual behavior that, perhaps in an adolescence age or?
I think it is quite spread it between those numbers, like 18 to 32.
Okay.
Because 18 to 32.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's interesting.
The participant of the interview, I think they are 21, 22. Yeah, they are 21, 22, 23, I think, that age.
Okay, that's the majority, but that's also interesting because at first I thought the people who were conducting this risky sexual behavior, perhaps in the early age or adolescent age, but if people in it's like late 20s, early 30s still do a risky sexual behavior, that's also I find it interesting.
Yeah, actually, what we discussed that time, whether we would open the participants to those below below the adult age, but we were thinking also about this ethical issue in Indonesia. So finally, I think we decided to make it 18 up. So we don't know. We still, I think we still have no clue about so many things about sexual behaviors of young people in Indonesia.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mbak Iput. Another question. I think this for Marika. There's a question. It's for long distance relationship that is having a hard time to have sex directly. Does using sex toys help the couple to keep their sexual life healthy? And how long does it?
Yeah, well, it's
effective?
a difficult question. I think that, to be honest, I think it's a good solution to deal with the problem that you could not meet each other during a lockdown if you have to stay at home and you want to sort of remain sexually intimate. I think that you could use virtual sex in the sense that you just via Zoom, but obviously I think that you can only do that when you really trust your partner, because otherwise you don't know whether they're recording it and then maybe spreading the images via the internet. So you really have to be sure. I think it could help you to sort of have some connection for a while, but I don't think that you can take that long. I mean, I think that a lot of these advices are like, okay, you can do this for 1 month or 2 months, but more than 1 year, you need this physical contact. You can never replace physical contact but I think it's also a good opportunity to broaden our idea about what is sex. Sex does not necessarily need to be the kissing and the penetration. It can also be giving each other a massage or talking dirty to each other, talking via the internet about the sexual fantasy and turning each other on via. So it doesn't necessarily need to be only physical. So I think that this COVID situation could also be an opportunity to try out new things, because otherwise couples are always focusing on the same. And if that is not possible, well, what else can we do? Try to be creative and inventive. It could actually also be a boost for your relationship.
Yeah, because it's a big problem in Indonesia. People who's having the sexual behavior online, and the partner recorded and blackmailed it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the biggest issue. That's why we always say, when I was reading, I mean, in the government, we had this advices to the people, like, if you don't live together, you can do this and this. But I was really concerned about these advices, because if you can trust your partner, it's okay. But if you're like in a dating phase and you don't know each other that well, because then don't do that, because you never know how the other partner will react to it. And it can destroy your life if they start to share the images. So you have to be careful. I think you can never do what I always say to people: don't do online what you wouldn't do offline. So if you trust the person offline, then you can engage in something more online, but don't do anything online. If you say, well, we never had sex before, but suddenly online I'm going to share a picture of a naked, don't do that, because if you don't have this trust offline, don't share a picture of your naked body online. I think that is important.
That's a really good point, I think. Thank you, Marika. Mbak,
I'm ready.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So
I'm change the computer. May I share the screen? Yeah. Yeah. Can you see?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Thank
it's there.
you. Thank you, Mas Danis, for buying me time, and thank you, Mbak Iput and Marika, for answering a question for the floor. Perhaps before I start my presentation, I want to ask, where and how do young people find love, find the one? When we were young, if we old enough, how you find your spouse, husband and wife? How you make your move, how to flirt, how to make her or him fall into your arms. And if you now young enough, how and where you find the partner, yeah. In one training that I had, Sue Johnson put this metaphor that I think it's quite fit with our situation, yeah. She said that if fish need water to survive, we human need a relation. So relation and the sense of bonding with other that we make us survive this journey of life. It's not necessary with one special person or in one romantic relation, but we really want to connect deeply with at least one person. We need some sense of acceptance, and we get through connection with other, yeah. Some aspect of human nature, from social interaction, basic necessity fulfillment, to professional work, we are already now being deeply integrated with technology. The effectivity and efficiency provided by using technology drive we migrate to the usually manual. Now activities are being technology mediated, and internet also involved in the core of human interaction. So as Mbak Iput research and also Marika already said that young adult make up the most internet user, and communication are the biggest function of the internet that being utilized. And with the rapid advancement of information and communication technology, sexual activity has found a novel form where activities that are past being done physically now can be done virtually. And the activity like sexual activity, and we do now in online sexual activity like sexting, changing text, photos, video, graphic content through cell phone. The content are being exchanged as self-produced, or sometimes jokes that or picture that forwarded. Yeah. Exchanging naughty message, especially those who involve graphic content, is still being widely recognized as deviant behavior, especially in Indonesia. Wait a sec. So why people sex? Yeah. Sex act as with a sex in as a invitation to the other partner to explore, to express, to share information about one fantasies, one sexuality, to enhance maintaining a relationship. When we trust enough with a partner, we want to explore novel stuff with them. Yeah. Sexting as invitations, it help also to communicate the partner interests. It helps also couple to connect each other and maintain a sexual relationship. And however, sexting can be also part of reassurance seeking behavior of individual with anxious attachment to reduce internal strain. Sex and sexting as a mean to maintain partner interest. Yeah. So the research, all the research mostly stating the negative impact of of sexting. Yeah, 66% published article on sexting investigate the negative impact of sexting, including risky sex behavior and other negative influence on personal well-being of the texter, yeah, ranging from experience negative emotions such upset, shame, and fear after sexting. However, is sex all bad? The other research bring more positive in sex paradigm. The view on sexuality mediated by technology, including sexting, is now shifting as an attempt. There's attempt to investigating sexting as a healthy and positive sexual behavior. And this research also found that sexting help a person to express their sexuality in relationship and to maintaining the relationship. Yeah. So the positive paradigm on sexting have been based on the various positive impact and correlation sexting have across function, both individually and interpersonally. In the early stage of relation, the existing communication surrounding sexuality will help strengthen the emotional bonds shared. So it show how couple being open with explicit material, thus it strengthening communication and trust and bonding. And as a couple need something new and novel, it also spice up the sexual activity and views as foreplay. With sexting, one also able to reflect and evaluate her or his preferences, whether I like being touched in this way, whether I want being touched in certain way, and there's and other activities. In sexting, as I said before, sexting can be served as invitation. So further, we need to this is a novel way to introduce when we have wishes or fantasies. And this is the form of communication. Sexting provide information of someone interest. And as I said before also, that this will help couples to connect and maintain a sexual relationship. Yeah. So we do this research to answer whether sexting correlate with sexual and relationship satisfaction. In the previous studies, sexting and sexual satisfaction were examined in young adults, but mainly not in a romantic relation context. So we wonder how sexting in the romantic relationship context. Yeah. we in this urban lifestyle with high mobility and rapid dynamics, people will turn into digital alternative of romantic and sexual behavior to build maintain their romantic relationship. So sexting has its role to maintaining the quality of romantic and sexual relationship. Yeah. We have this participant for this research who are male and female Indonesian citizens who were in a romantic relationship and had experience or with sexting, and they in a romantic relationship. We found that male participant usually the initiator of texting, while for female participant usually were receiver. So they experienced that their partner, their male partner initiated sex. In sexting, participants for the most part were both sender and receiver. So rarely only receive or only send. However, there are more male exclusive receiver of sex. It's for 14%, and female with exclusive sender 12%. Yeah. So the result of this finding, our finding that sexting behavior could predict individual sexual satisfaction. The frequency of sexting behavior significantly predicted sexual satisfaction score. And also sexting has positive correlation with relationship satisfaction, even though the correlation were weak, but it suggests that it lead to relationship satisfaction. Also, the significant correlation also found between sexual satisfaction with sending sex behavior and increase in sexual satisfaction accompanied by increase in sexting. And we found also that anxiety attachment has a positive correlation with sending sex behavior. Mbak Iput and Marika already present us with the challenges that young adults experience. I also find this struggling in my private practice. I sense increased visit from old and new clients during pandemic, and mostly the main complaints are about relationship, feel loss of direction because of struggling with relation, and clients find it hard to find person that they can connect and trust. Even though I conduct research in sexting behavior in romantic relationship, I found different experience from my client. The need to connect deeply and fail to do so bring a lot of negative experience, such as negative thoughts, such as nobody loves me, wants me, needs me. I'm such a failure. I cannot maintain a relationship. I'm not good enough. This kind of thought lead to anxiety and depression. And it's not only in the relation, but it's also as impact of work stress related. The sadness of being lonely lead to struggles to find company through dating apps. So, and also that I found is client with sexual orientation issues experience fear and anxiety, and losing long-term relation hit them hard and make them more anxious and depressed. And in my practice, I mainly use, as Mas Danis already mentioned, I use acceptance commitment therapy. And with this technique, we, client and I, practice mindfulness exercise. Mindfulness help us to embrace all negative experience and also help client to be aware with bodily changes, urge, drive, the tension, the urge to sex, the urge to sex with random person. With mindfulness skill, client learn how to embrace difficult experiences instead of struggling with it or reject the experience. So we learn to aware that this is the feeling of being having this urge, and sit with the urge for a while before take the phone to start dating app or sexting. Sexually issues is not really easy to talk. Even though most people done that, it's like more normative view that we should not do that. But in my private practice, young people mostly admit that they are having sex without even without commitment. Yeah. So it's taboo to talk about, but yeah, most of them practice sex. Young adult also experience insecure to talk about their sexual experience. So validating their feeling will be crucial to gain trust and build relationship. By validating their experience, we also provide safe and secure relation where they can be comfortable enough to talk about it. I have client that difficult for her to talk about her relapse into sexting. So she came into me because she find it's difficult to cut the relation with sexting. She call her partner sexting guy. So she wants to stop, but sometimes she relapse for because of when she feel lonely and she feel needs someone to talk to, and then she start to connect with the sexting guy and start to sext. And my other client found it difficult to share that she had sex with a stranger. There's emotion that a shame, and they know that they shouldn't done that, but somehow she done sex with stranger only 2 times dating and then have sex. So validating will help client to aware with their experience and help to connect with herself or himself. And we also set example how to connect, and after the connection set, we can move or suggest different approach to their experience or the urge. Yeah. Basically, in mindfulness exercise, client will experience awareness on body, emotion, and thought, and use the bodily sensation as anchor to themselves to present moment. So there's when we feel the urge, we being aware and sit with it, and nothing, and we don't have to relieve or release the tension immediately after we feel that. So however, I also found that in mindfulness or acceptance exercise, it's not easy to do also because of the wrong conception of mindfulness. So as a therapist, we need to because sometimes it's like related to certain religious practice, or sometimes they have misconception that I've done mindfulness, it not work for me. So and in Indonesia context, sometimes we can use the word kusuk. So it's like being present, and we accept all the experience. We also can use another word to change mindfulness, like engagement, being focused, self-aware, grounding, centering, anchoring, or it's counter of automatic pilot. And for acceptance, sometimes client also dislike the term of acceptance. It means like I have to accept all this, and we can change the word with backroom, give space, let go, allow, stop struggling, and hold it soft and gentle, and something like that. So it will help them to more accept the exercise that we suggest. There are various exercise in mindfulness. However, the exercise has the same attitude. This is the attitude, being open with the experience. This is the sadness that I feel. Oh, okay, I feel loneliness. The loneliness is stay in my body. This is where I store my loneliness in body. We being open, and we also flexible and curious, and curiosity is like attitude that, oh wow, this is me when I feeling this kind of sadness. This is me when I feel ashamed. This is me when I feel the urge. And also we introduce the non-judgmental and non-evaluative view. After client exercise the mindfulness, we moving also in session, we also clarifying values. Being aware with values are important to lead to the new action, to develop new action. What was the most important in life, what give life meaning. It helps client to direct and redirect their action even when they relapse. For example, I have client that turn into porn when the work stress related and tension in marriage, he turned into porn. And being aware with values give him a sense of direction. Is this meaningful enough for me to do this? So perhaps this is my reflection, a general reflection, that sexting on long-term relationship has benefit. As Marika said, that when we trust enough with the person, it helps us to bond. However, a sexting on stranger also has benefit, and it's short-term benefit because it able to reduce anxiety, cope with loneliness. But it need to tackle carefully to make the client aware. Is this the short-term benefit that I want to receive? So, and I also found that sex on stranger is harmless, because I don't see him or her again. I don't have to face the her or his evaluation. I don't have to argue. So the thought that sex or sex with stranger is harmless, within young people, we need to address and tackle this carefully. There are negative emotion also experienced by client, mostly shame, and even we bound, even we the rapport build effectively. Sometimes difficult for them to admit or to say in session regarding their sexual decision when they relapse or when they do watch porn again. So therapist, counselor need to address with empathetic in order to not to make them more shame and guilt, and so we can work on that. And I think sexual behavior and or sexual decision related with relationship issues, the emotion, the deeper emotion would be sadness, depression, loneliness. counselor and therapists who working with young adult client need to understand their context, how to live, especially in this COVID context, how, as Marika said before, how the sexual career step by step until they make the real sex relationship. Yeah. So I think as a counselor, we also need to practice mindfulness to avoid judgmental attitude, because I have several clients report that they having difficult session and upset with their previous therapist because the previous therapist comment in judgmental and comment in harsh and more normative way, and it really make them more shameful. Sexuality need to be discussed in open and scientific manner, and therapists, I think, need to update himself, herself with research on sexuality to help individual client or couple. I think that's all from my presentation, my sharing from practice. Mas Dennis?
Thank you, Madian. It's a very interesting topic, a novel way of building a sexual relationship by sexting. And also, I don't know if it's considered as a novel intervention, mindfulness. I think it's a growing intervention right now.
Yeah.
So, and also, what I found interesting is sexting apparently helps people to maintain sexual relationship, and it's a novel way. Also, it is correlated significantly with relationship satisfaction, and for sender and receiver also, not only for one party. And yeah, how the mindfulness could help to become more aware for the present moment, and yeah, it helps to reduce the anxiety, the negative emotions of people who's having a difficulty in this COVID time. And people can also, therapists can also use other terms for mindfulness and acceptance. And I think that's important in Indonesia because, yeah, of the religious beliefs that they have might hinder the clients to have a good intervention, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Madian. So let's move on to the Q&A discussion session. And perhaps could you please spotlight and pin all of the speakers, Maswin or Vidya? Okay, so yeah, there's one question about how do people, single people, actually adapt to the situation. I think it's a question to Marika, but it's also relevant to all of the speakers. And I would also like to know how you all think about this, about how people adapt, the single people adapt to the dating situation right now. How do they adapt, and how can they still explore their sexuality in a healthy way? Yeah,
I think it's a big challenge nowadays, because what we do, what we call now the walking date. So people just date and then they walk and they talk, and then there's no room for sexuality. I think in a way it could also be a good thing, because I know there's a difference between Indonesia and the Western countries, but here people very often quickly engage into sexuality. So they know they have a date and then immediately they engage in sex. So I think it could also be a good thing as a single to explore the fact, like, hey, maybe we just talk and enjoy a conversation, and that you don't necessarily immediately need to engage in physical contact. And if you do engage in sexual contact, it's like I said, we have to be pragmatic. I think what we sometimes with singles, what we kind of sometimes encourage is like a sex buddy, friends with benefits, that you say, well, you just make sure that maybe also when you don't have, when you're single and you have a need for physical contact, but you have difficulties with the dating, but you need the sex, then you can have like one person that you trust, that you know doesn't has a lot of social contacts, that is safe, that you can sort of engage in sex with that one person without having a relationship. That could be one option. Or it could also just be a matter of just being very safe, in the sense that if you date and you have physical contact with other people, that you're always sure to have contact details, that you can maybe also use a mouth mask when you are having sex, using a condom, using just ways that there is no, I think the biggest issue is the saliva. So just trying to sort of, you can have physical contact, but try to make sure that there is as less as possible as saliva contact. And I know this is very artificial, because when I talk with young people and they say, yeah, we can have sex, but we cannot kiss and we cannot do this and this and this. Obviously, I think this is challenging. But if we really want to make sure about physical health, that should be the way we need to go. I think it's important to clean your sheets and to ventilate the room and all these different issues. But at the same time, I think the most important thing is when you have sexual contact with somebody, that it is somebody that you know is not seeing a lot of people, is also following the rules, stays in their own social bubble. So then I think you can engage in sexuality as long as you know that people are trustworthy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Mbak Dian or Mbak Put, do you have any thoughts about this? Mbak Put, you're still muted. Yeah.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. The questions, are they related to COVID or in general?
In COVID situation.
Oh, in COVID situation. A single people, I think, I don't know, this is my observation only. I think single people in Indonesia, I'm just talking about Indonesian people, young Indonesian people. The single ones, maybe they are less stressed than those who are in relationship. I don't know, because those who are in relationship, I mean those who are having date, pacaran gitu ya, but because before COVID, maybe they stay in their kos-kosan, in their, what is that, in their, I don't know, dormitory, or, and then they can find their, they can meet their dates more easily compared to now. Now young people, they go back to their own house, right? To their own home, parents. So I don't know. It's very, I think it's very varies the situation in Indonesia. We cannot really conclude something because of that situation. So single young people might not be so stressed. Some of them, they might be so stressed, but it is not because of COVID, but because of their singleness. Before COVID, they already feeling stressed as well, I think, because they feel lonely. So I don't know. It's very so many possibilities. Some single people, maybe they will still try to engage in casual sex, I don't know, through dating app. Some others, they will try to find positive activities. Some other, like Marika said, maybe they will engage in intimacy with no sex, so you can have chat with, I don't know, with your best friends, etc. And it's okay. Some are very lonely because they really need to have connection, but they don't have it. Maybe they have their own values for not to engage in sex so early, but they don't know what to do. So it's really difficult for me.
In my I like to share my client experience. using dating app, he found that there's no mystery with the woman that he date, because if I ask her what kind of movie or book that she like, I know that we have the same interest. If I talk about something, it's already all the same, so there's no mystery. And then he said that that's why talking about sexual activity being all so it's like jump to the sexual activity talking, or will you do that with me, something like that. So there's no flirting needed, no guessing needed, so it's
Yeah.
more like to jump. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's different, I think, from the previous generation that they learn each other. There's not much to learn because all the same. The app connect them, connect all the same on the.
Okay.
That
Is
is.
that what you also found in your practice, Median?
Yeah. That's my client shared the story, and also sharing with students. They said that they had, when guys do that, the female student, so they usually only chat in the app, so they won't share their private number, only chat on the app. However, if they find that the other person, the guy, trusted enough, they will share their private numbers. They also student and also client turn into apps because they just want to make new friends. They feel like I want new friends that nothing have no previous evaluation and nothing know nothing about me. So the fear of evaluation also released by sense of new relation with the dating app, because this person know nothing about me, so I can be me, and I want to make friend, and sometimes only make friend. However, female student, my student found it difficult because guy always talk about sex. Always in fight, always are
There is a gender difference. You can clearly see, I think, that many gender differences in how and using the dating apps also, that it's not only about differences between men and women, but it's also that some people really are using it because they want a serious relationship, and some are just using it for sex. And it really is, that is a little bit the issue, that there should be like what we have in the Netherlands. I don't know whether it's Indonesia. We have also these paid dating apps that you have to pay for it. And if you use a dating app like that, then you're more sure that people are serious, because if you have to pay for this app, this is really somebody who wants to have a relationship. Otherwise, you wouldn't pay for it. And when it's like this free Tinder app, you can do whatever you want. It's so free. So I think that sometimes it could be a solution, if you really are looking for a serious relationship, is that you have these paid dating apps, so that people are more serious. That it's not only about sex.
Agree.
Do you see any pattern of behavior in dating or using a dating apps in Netherlands, Marika?
Well, it's very popular, obviously, and I think dating apps are good. I can see that there are a lot of also relationships developing based on dating apps. You have a big, pool of people you can choose from, and otherwise you can only choose the people you meet in your own city, for example. But at the same time, there's also a risk, I think, because the problem is when you date in real life, especially when you're younger, you develop your type. Like, what is the person that I fall in love with? Your sexual orientation. This is something that you learn by experience. But if you use a dating app, you have to predefine what you want. You have to predefine your type. So without any experience having a relationship, you just have to decide, I want a guy who is this and this and this and this. This is my profile. And I think, then you miss out a lot of information, because sometimes, I mean, I'm together with a partner who is not my type. I mean, if I would pick him on a dating app, I would probably not have picked him. So why do you fall in love? Because there's this chemistry, because there's something going on in real life contact. And that's a little bit, I think, the problem with dating apps is that you miss this real life contact, and that some people are also sort of hiding beyond the dating apps. It's very easy to chat a little bit and to be social and so on, and they don't dare to actually, there's sometimes social anxiety that they feel very good when chatting via the app, but then when meeting in real life becomes difficult because they're afraid, they don't know how to do it, they don't practice anymore with real life social conversation. They are very good after their computer screen. So I think there are some risks involved there.
Especially right now, people will also be anxious to meet because of the COVID, and they will be hiding behind the app.
I think that especially now during the COVID period, that a lot of people were just doing this virtual contact and having all these computer sessions. And I think that there will be some people who are a little bit inhibited and don't know. I mean, it's also about, especially when you're younger, you need to learn to be social. It's not only in relationships, but also meeting friends and keeping conversation. And there was like more than 1 year that you couldn't practice with that. For some people, it will become more difficult again to sort of turn into the social world again.
Okay. And do you all think, in general, does the internet help to maintain the relationship and sexual relationship, or is it make it worse?
Don't think you can say yes or no to this. I think it's just depends. I think that the internet can clearly, like in the study from Diane, we saw that sexting can be very positive in relationships. So we always think that watching porn or sexting or dating apps, it's all negative, but it not necessarily need to be. I mean, watching porn can also be positive because you learn about sexuality. Using sexting can be interesting to get some extra stimulation. Using dating apps can be interesting. So I think it's just, it depends. The basic ideas are always, it should be consent. Mutual consent is the most important thing. If you use dating apps or whatever in the internet, you always have to make sure that there is mutual consent, that people are not forced to in it, that there's no violence, that there are no blackmailing involved, and so on. So, but I think that the internet is part of our life now, so we just have to learn to manage it and deal with it and use it for the best.
Okay, thank you, Marika, Mbak Dian, Mbak Christy.
Danis, can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Actually, when I listen to all of the discussion, I have a chat with Ibu Prapti Sumarmo Markam. She also listened to us, and she also to Marika. She is a very senior, our professor. So she said, I am listening to the symposium. Why do you talk about sexual behavior? And then, because she really would like to listen more about romance. So, so that's really our situation now in Indonesia, I think. Because when I first discuss with my students, my Scripsy students, I also would like, I also talk to them, let's us talk about this love, relationship, romance, etc. But then actually young people, maybe they face it difficulty to differentiate between romance and sex. Because according to Ibu Prapti, there is no romance in your talking.
Yeah, but I
there's
think
no
it's the
romance in your talking.
situation.
It's
I
really
think the
just
situation, it's not about the dating, and I think that
yeah.
intimacy and relationships are still very important for young people, but sex
Yeah.
is part of dating relationships. And it
Yeah.
used to be that sex was only when you're married, and to be honest, this is
Yeah.
not anymore. And so I think we just have to talk about sex, because I think that's what people are, what young people are concerned with. Yeah. But I do believe that we do have to make sure that we get the romance back into our
Yeah. That's
relationships, that it should not only focus on physical activity.
Yeah.
I think that's the situation when we really rely on dating app too much, right, Marika and Dian? That maybe we will lose those really like the mystery, the step by step,
the skill, the flirt
others,
skill.
the
The flirting,
intimacy.
The flirting skill.
Yeah, the flirting thing.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
if you see somebody on in a bar, what people now do is they quickly look if they are on Tinder, and then see how they can chat via Tinder. And it's like they're sitting there, approach them, flirt with them. This is really what happens. I've seen this with friends who just saw somebody interesting in the bar, didn't dare to approach them, and just looked them up via Tinder. And I thought, what is happening here? And this is the risk.
Yeah. Wow.
That's
It's
interesting.
the behavior change, the behavior change.
Yeah. But it's indeed a good remark that we need to still think about that relationships and dating is more than only engage in sexual activity, and that it's also about love and commitment and relationships, and how you build and how you need to practice with that. And I think that's also important, that we cannot forget that it's not only about sex education, it's also about relationship education and about relationship values. Yeah.
And like you said, like sexual relationship is on only one part. And maybe we talked mainly on this, but we shouldn't forget about the intimacy and the romance of Okay. So maybe because the time is almost up. Do you have any final statement for this topic? Maybe we can start with Iput.
Sorry, Danis. There are some questions. Are we already cover all the questions? Like because
obviously not, but it's already
okay.
11.
Okay. So I don't know, myself first. I just would like to share with our friends here, the participants, that this is a very evolving issues in Indonesia. So that is the situation now. When we talk about romance in young people, some will go too quickly into discussion of sexuality or sex. Other will feel very lonely because they are not into that value, but they don't know how to find partners because of what Marike already told us as well, and Dian also. It's very difficult for now for young people to find each other offline, right? So it's that's the situation. So actually, what I would like to say is that we have so many issues, deeper issues as well about this, related to loneliness, related to mental health as well, related to conflicting motivation and values between dating app users. Because actually I have just one student that I know, a female student who are traumatized because she engaged in dating app, but it's different value maybe than the other one. The guy really forced sex into her, and it's quite difficult. So so I just would like to say that we are sorry if it is not really into romance, but still we have so many issues to do research more I think that's what I would like to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mbak Iput. Marika.
Yeah, I think we already covered a lot of different topics, and I think when it comes to the internet and all these issues and COVID, I think this is a new world, and we have to be aware of it. And we cannot, I mean, we can all say like romance and relationship, it's all very important, but at the same time, we need to take into account what is changing now, what is happening. And it's indeed like it used to be like, I feel that also in Indonesia, when I hear it, it's changing a bit. Like in the Netherlands, we're more open and sexuality is less taboo, but it used to be like Indonesia, you know, there's sort of a movement, it's a change. I mean, that we were more taboo and closed about sexuality. There was no sex before marriage, it was only in committed relationship. This has changed during the years. And I feel that Indonesia is going the same way. And I think that everywhere in the world in which sex was for a long time a taboo and it was more on commitment and relationships, that it's kind of shifting, and we have to be aware of that. We can fight against it, but at the same time we also need to just deal with the fact that this is how it is. And I think we need to make sure that we talk about risks. What is the risk of in that all this dating and all this sex focus, and where is the romance? That these are risks involved. But at the same time, don't forget that it also creates opportunities. It cannot only be a negative image, like, oh, what are the risks of, because then sex and relationships becomes very much like, be careful, prevention. And I think it's also about pleasure. Sexuality can be something pleasurable. Relationships can also benefit. Having a good relationship with a partner is a positive thing. But if we're only focusing on intimate violence and gender inequality and extortion, and then sex and relationships become so negative. And I would sort of plead to make sure that we, in this world that is evolving, that we still keep this connection to each other and believe and trust in long-term relationships, in good sexuality, good intimacy with partners, and that it's also about pleasure and happiness.
Thank you, Marika. Really good point. Mbak Dian, please.
I think Mbak Iput and Marika covered all the statement, and I want to add that even though sex is a taboo stuff, taboo to talk about, but actually the data, the research show that young people also done that in the even before marriage. So having this kind of repressive culture, or like put that into the sinful situation, it's not not, I don't know how to put that, it's not benefit for also sexuality health and mental health. We will like more experience negative emotion because of that, but with the healthier paradigm that sex can be pleasure and sex is benefit for the mental health also, it's I think that will be the focus instead of other negative impact. Dennis?
Okay, thank you, Mbak Dian. Yeah, I think I agree with you all that obviously internet brings the risk of it, like people already mentioned about people can be traumatized by using the dating apps and exposed to the sexual violence, be blackmailed, for example. But it also brings a positive side that it can bring intimacy, satisfaction, and helps with people's mental health. Thank you for the answers and also the questions from the participants. I'm really sorry that I cannot address all of the questions due to time limit. So thank you to all of the speakers, and let us give a big round of virtual applause for them. And yeah, I hope you all enjoy this first symposium. Now I'm giving back the floor to Nadine.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Wow, today has been such an eventful day, right, everyone? Unfortunately, we were not able to go through everyone's questions, but we hope that everyone had a really good time. Perhaps many of you may have even caught interest in the topics that we have just gone through today. We sure hope so. I've definitely learned a lot myself, and I'm so glad that we were able to go through so many topics that, like Madian said, are not usually talked about so openly here in Indonesia, despite having so many interested to talk about it. We really enjoyed having you guys here today and are really thankful for the guest speakers who have so kindly given us some of their time to share their vast knowledge and interest regarding various topics on this existing issues prevalent in this era of an intermediated life. A big thank you as well to our moderator, Mas Dennis, and the rest of the very wonderful staffs who work magic behind today's event. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of the first symposium event of Psychology from the East, Psychology from the West. I'm sure everyone had fun, and we would like to thank you all for joining us today to make this event a more joyous one for us all. On a brighter note, we would like to announce that we have already secured a date for the second symposium event. We hope that we will be seeing a lot of familiar faces there, so don't forget to take note of the date. The event will be held on the 24th of June, 2021, where we will be presenting the theme of education and the internet, challenges faced by the higher education in renewing curriculum and managing students, experiences of Indonesia and Sweden. Wow, it will surely be interesting to delve into those topics. So be sure to mark the date on your calendar and invite your friends to join you to view the event together, because we would love to have them here. After all, as the saying goes, the more the merrier. Now, before we bring the event to an end, we would also like to share a bit of information regarding the amazing doctoral study program that is offered here in Universitas Indonesia. For those who are interested in pursuing a doctoral study in psychology here in Universitas Indonesia, we uphold the vision to excel in the implementation of doctoral level education and research in psychology at the national level, and to compete at the Southeast Asian level. This study program also entails a very promising collaboration with the Faculty of Psychology and Neuroscience at Maastricht University. So the students of Universitas Indonesia will have an opportunity to enroll in academic or research activities at Maastricht University. The students will also have a chance to be involved in a collaboration of research and publication with Maastricht University. For more information, you can reach the contacts that were given at the bottom of the presentation regarding the doctoral study program. Oh, and I would also like to inform you all that there will be a virtual open house about the postgraduate study program offered at Universitas Indonesia. The virtual open house will be held on the 29th of May 2021, which is this Saturday. So be sure to keep that in mind for those who are interested. Well, that is all for today, unfortunately. Don't forget to mark the calendar for the second symposium event so that we can meet again soon. We hope that everyone will have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you and see you next time.
Dan mengabdi Tuhan dan mengabdi bangsa dan negara Indonesia. Alma-materku setia berjasa, Universitas Indonesia. Kami warga berbakti dalam karya mahasiswa Universitas Indonesia, pelambang cinta berdasarkan Pancasila, dasar negara, kobarkan semangat kita demi Universitas Indonesia. Universitas Indonesia, universitas kami, ibu kota negara, pusat ilmu budaya bangsa, kami mahasiswa pengabdi cinta dan
Thank you, Mbak Iput. Marika, thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope to see
Danis,
you
thank
next time
you.
again.
Thank
Nadine,
you.
thank you.
So we
Thank you,
leave
Marika.
the Zoom now? Yeah.
Thank you so much.